You can literally kill yourself and they'll watch you.
Right.
And so I thought, no, we need guardrails in the workplace, just to protect people from themselves.
Right.
People who haven't worked out their values, people that are too young to know what's important. For me, I would say, because I talk holistically and I talk about physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, right?
Right.
And there is an interplay between all those parts. You can't just go off on one and forget about the others.
Okay.
And I think people think that, oh, so long as I'm fit, I'll be fine. Or so long as I exercise, I'll be fine, and whatever.
Right.
But it's understanding that, the human body works better in that holistic way where you're looking after yourself holistically in terms of physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So if there's one thing somebody should do is get the mindset right, and all the other things will take care of themselves.
Welcome back to the Opportunity Room, the show where we sit down with true leaders, trailblazers, change makers, people who are turning ambition into actions. Today's guest is a global voice in workplace well-being, productivity, and belonging. She's an author, speaker, and coach whose work blends Western science, Eastern philosophy, and African wisdom. Her acclaimed book, Octopus on a Treadmill, has been praised by many critics as being a must-read for all working mothers. She has given a TED Talk, appeared on national TV, and worked with organizations like Citibank, IBM, and the Home Office. Her bio is so exhaustive, we couldn't possibly read it all here, which, which says a lot about her depth and impact. From her childhood in Africa to becoming a thought leader in England, her journey is one of resilience, transformation, and inspiring others to rethink what is possible. Please welcome to the Opportunity Room, Gifty Enright.
Thank
So,
you. Thank you for having me.
Gifty, we are actually, it's a pleasure and a privilege for us to have you here today. You could have been anywhere, but you choose to actually spend this 1 hour with us. So we're more than pleased and looking forward to this conversation. So without further ado, can you can you tell us in your own words, how would you describe yourself? Who's Gifty Enright?
How would I describe myself? Well, I am passionate, shall we say, about making workplaces a better place because we spend a lot of our time at work, but particularly for women. Because the experience for women in the workplace currently is not the best. And then when they become mothers, it gets even worse. And so, for me, in general, is to make everybody have a better experience at work because we spend a lot of time at work.
Right.
But for the minorities and for marginalized groups, for them to have a better time at work.
Nice. We'll actually ask more questions as we go along the interview, just to unpack the reason behind why you chose actually to focus on women empowerment rather than a global humanity in general. But more to come on that. So you've mentioned that you grew up in a developing country, right? So which part of Africa are you originally from, and how did
Ghana.
that shape your worldview? Oh, Ghana. You from Ghana? How did that shape your worldview?
Um, it really, and if you ask me, although I've lived in England longer than I lived in Ghana,
Right.
I am still at my core Ghanaian.
Right.
Even though when I go back, they don't think I'm Ghanaian. But anyway, that's a different conversation
Right.
altogether, right? But in terms of how it shaped me, when I was growing up, the phrase, it takes a village to raise
Right.
a child, that's how
Right.
we lived. It
Right.
took a village. It was the community spirit was very strong. And I think for me, in terms of the person I've become, community is very important. And I know that no man is an island, and
Right.
that you have to treat other people with a decent level of humanity. And it's the only way that you secure your peace of mind. And that if you just behave like you're an island and, don't take care of other people and all that, apart from the fact that you're going to be sad and desperately lonely and all the rest of it,
Right.
we're social beings. We really are social beings. And now, the science is coming out to prove it with the neuroscience and everything like that. But to a lot of people, it's rhetoric. But in Africa, we actually live like that. It's just the way we operate. And so for me, that's how that shaped me, that sense of community. Wherever I am, I have to belong to a community. I have to develop a community. I have to give back to a community. That's just the way I've been configured.
Absolutely. Myself being from Senegal, I can definitely attest to that. Till today, my kids are currently right now in Senegal with their grandparents. We wanted for them to actually, early in their life, to understand the culture and just be in that community. And that way, if they come in the Western world, it doesn't. They still have those core value in them. So I truly understand where you're coming from with that. So now, in your journey from Africa to England, right, what sparked your passion for well-being in the workplace transformation?
So I was burnt out in the workplace. I was very ambitious. I mean, I am still very ambitious, but in a different way. And it was to climb the corporate ladder, and being first generation African, it was all about achieving and achieving, right?
Right.
And you want to do well, you want, I know, you want the big house, the big car, and all the rest of it. And so I was working hard, working all the hours God sent. And the corporate world, it will take from you if you keep giving, right? And it will take and take until there's nothing to give. If you yourself as a human being don't determine your values and what's important to you, and you want to spend 24/7 working, it will take.
Right.
And so I hadn't, I guess, worked out in terms of my values what the important things were.
Right.
And so I thought, and I was a workaholic, and I thought that was a thing to do. And I wanted the badge of honor. I wanted to be known as hardworking and all those things. And of course, society rewards that behavior,
Right.
Um, so I carried on like that until it wasn't working for me anymore, until I had all the material trappings that those values bring. But I wasn't well. I was very unhappy. I wasn't enjoying my life. So I had all the material trappings, but I felt very empty inside. And my body was also telling me loudly that, this is not right. Something has got to give. I can't keep doing what you're doing.
Right.
Um, so that forced me to reassess my priorities,
Okay.
and I mean, I've got two boys. So, I mean, they were young and I was whole full on. I had a full-time job, big job. I had a side gig, a side hustle as a family, husband, two dogs, it was a lot.
Right.
So I then, when I was brought down to my knees, um, by health and just having to work out how I'm going to live and all that, I realized that in the workplace, at that time anyway, now at least people pay lip service to it. At that time, there was nothing for your well-being. You can literally kill yourself and they'll watch you,
Right.
And so I thought, no, we need guardrails in the workplace, um, just to protect people from themselves,
Right.
people who haven't worked out their values, people that are too young to know what's important.
Right.
And those guardrails need to be put in place to help them, because otherwise, you're not going to live to see what those achievements are. And even if you do, you will be sick and you won't be able to enjoy it. And that's no way to live.
So now, do you think that particular lack of well-being is only geared towards women, or is just human being in general, that lack that actually
Yeah, and that's a good question. So it's geared towards everyone,
right,
right, in the workplace. So um, it's not just focused on women. It's just everybody. It's just the workplace. If you want to work 24/7, it's just like knock yourself out. But where the women suffer more is that the expectation on women is different in society. And so for me, when my kids were young and all that, by the time you get to the office, you've already done a whole day's work before you even step there.
that's true.
And then you have to go and then go toe to toe with the men who've literally just rolled out of bed and got to the workplace, right?
Right.
And then when you finish that toe to toe, you come home and guess what? You continue, with the housework and this and that and that and that and that. So society expects women to be the primary caregivers when it comes to family. Men
Right.
are not held to the same expectation and standard. When the men do it, I'm not saying the men don't do it, they do, but when they do, they are applauded. And when the women do it, it's like it's your job, it's an expectation.
Right.
When they're going to the workplace, nobody's making any allowances for them. And so the workplaces aren't set up for well-being anyway. And then if you're stepping in there, haven't done a 7-hour shift because the baby's teething and whatever, and you've been up half the night, and then you get in there and then you have to do another 8 hours and then come home and continue, you just burn out quicker,
That's right.
And so that's why the women get hit quicker and bigger than the men.
I would agree to that, definitely. The expectation on women's is far greater than what I expected from men, as far as duty outside. They wearing different hat at work, at home, and it's very, very overwhelming at times. So I didn't have the opportunity to actually read your book, but I kind of skim at it, right? So I think you share a powerful lesson about intersection of health, success, and happiness. If leaders could apply one concept in your book starting tomorrow, what would that be?
And that's an interesting question, as in one concept in the book. So for me, I would say, because I talk holistically and I talk about physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, right? And there is an interplay between all those parts. You can't just go off on one and forget about the others.
Okay.
And I think people think that, oh, so long as I'm fit, I'll be fine. Or so long as I exercise, I'll be fine and whatever.
Right.
But it's understanding that, the human body works better in that holistic way where you're looking after yourself holistically in terms of physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And so if you ask me the one thing, and in the book, I actually draw this, I take Maslow's pyramid and flip it upside down. And what I'm saying is that start with, and I don't mean this in a religious sense at all. I actually
Right.
mean this in the psychological sense, as in start with your spiritual framework. And for me, spirituality is just, psychology, mindset, whatever on steroids, right?
Right.
So, is to start with that framework, because that is what affects the way you think, right? So your mindset, which normally the mindset is borrowed from your philosophy of life, right? So you
Right.
need to get the right philosophy because that's what's going to drive your mindset.
Right.
And your mindset is which is what you're thinking, is what drives your thoughts.
Right.
And your thoughts drive your emotions in terms of what you're feeling.
Right.
And what you're feeling affects your body, right?
That
And
makes sense.
so you start off by getting the mindset right.
Right.
So if there's one thing somebody should do is get the mindset right, and all the other things will take care of themselves.
Great. So now let me digress a little bit. I probably should have asked that question first, right? So why was that? Why was the book titled "Octopus on Treadmill"? Where did the idea come from?
Right. And so I will give full credit to my husband. I actually didn't come up with that title. He did.
Okay. All
He
right.
came up with a title. So when I was writing the book, I thought, what should I call the book? Believe it or not, one of the options was how to live without Prozac, honestly. And then I thought, if I do that, I'm going to be sued. So I couldn't do that.
Right.
And in terms of the octopus on a treadmill, for working mothers, basically at any point, you have a lot of things on your plate. So it's like the 8-armed octopus, right? So it's like 8 things and you're spinning all those. And you don't even have the luxury of standing still to spin those plates. It's like being on a treadmill. You have to literally be walking and spinning all those 8 plates. And so he came up with a title and I thought, yeah, that captures it. Yeah, I'm going to run with that. So yeah.
That is perfect. That is definitely perfect. Now, when you were writing the book, were you still working full time, or you just completed this? Okay. So how did that process? How did you manage? Tell us, walk us through. What it takes to write a book. Actually, I have ambition of writing a book some days, right? So I need to know
Right.
what are the different steps, or what is the mindset?
Yeah, and this is if I can write a book, anybody can. That said, as you can see behind me, I've always been a book person. I
Right.
love books. So I always knew I was going to write a book. I just didn't know what I was going to write. And I actually thought I would write fiction, believe it or not. But they do say to write what you know. And maybe I haven't got an imagination. I don't know, but I thought I knew my life. I knew what I was going through. And so I was going to write about that. And in terms of writing process, I mean, at that time was actually one of the busiest time of my life. So I said I had a full-on job, I had a side hustle, I had the kids, husband, dogs, the whole thing. So I was very busy. So where did I find the time to write that, you might ask? Luckily for me, I'm quite a very disciplined person. And so when I decided I was going to do it, I used to set myself a target of what I would write. And normally at the weekends, I just lock myself away and write. And the writing process itself, I didn't find hard because, I love books and I love writing. So I'm sure you find me on LinkedIn, I write every day on LinkedIn. I just love the writing process. I love that. It didn't bother me at all. I mean, when people are writing posts and they're like, oh God, what should I write about? I always have a long list of things waiting for me to write. So the writing itself wasn't difficult for me, but it was more the technical part of writing a book I wasn't too keen on, especially when things will come back from my editor and basically you have red ink all over it. I wasn't too keen on that bit. But in
Right.
terms of, because the first draft, basically, they say just get it out, in whatever form, shape or form, just get it out. Write unfiltered, which is what I used to do, and just write, get the thoughts down, and then you can tinker around with it. But I was very disciplined in terms of the number of words I would write, and it didn't have to come out right. It was just like, just get it out. And it's not even the number of words. I used to give myself like maybe a 2-hour block or an hour block that I'm writing, and just made sure I would go sit and do that,
Okay.
So I was very disciplined like that. Um, and also, as you have to have however many chapters you're having. And honestly, um, the chapters I had to keep splitting things as I was writing more and more. Um, so it was like, I just decided you get your titles as in what I was going to write about, and then start writing about that, and not even in the particular order that you want the book to go. Just
Okay.
write about what you feel like writing. So if I felt like writing chapter 10, I would write chapter 10, and next time if I felt like writing chapter 2, I'll come and write chapter 2.
Interesting.
Um,
Okay.
so in that sense, it made it easier because if I had to go sequentially,
Right.
if I was battling with chapter 5, I'd be stuck there forever.
Right.
Um, and so if I was battling with chapter 5, I could just leave it and go write chapter 8 and come back.
So it's pretty similar to like journaling with discipline, right? You just write, you just brainstorm every day about the thing that you think what will be relevant in the book. Then later on, you just get the time to reorganize the whole thing and just write the outline of how you.
Yeah, and then of course there's a research part of it, and things you want to include, facts and figures, whatever it is. So you'd research that, but that would also be part of your window, if you like, so if I had a 2-hour block, is like, am I writing or am I researching? But the point was to be consistent with my effort. So whenever was my writing window, I will go sit and do that. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's great. Great information. So you've worked with major organizations like Citibank, IBM, and the Home Office. What's one change you've seen that truly boosts your morale and productivity in those environments?
Well, so those places, normally I've gone and I've given talks. So what happens is they will commission me to come and give a talk about a particular subject. And most of the time I talk about women in the workplace or well-being in the workplace. And for me, it's just the fact that they're even doing that now, asking for people to come and talk to their employees, asking on International Women's Day for women to come and talk about issues that women face. That is what I find heartwarming, because it means that they care about their people,
Right.
and because when I go in there and I'm talking about well-being, I'm giving tips, I'm giving strategies and all that kind of stuff, and people are listening and changing their lives that way, and of
Right.
course, for the organization, if your workforce is well, that equals higher productivity. So, the benefit in the end, and you have low absenteeism and stuff. But for me, it's just the bottom line is the fact that now they want people to come and talk to their staff about well-being, about women's issues, things like, the women's talent pipeline, how to keep that going. And that is the change. And that is what gives me hope.
Now, how do you track? Like, is there a way? Do you have some metrics to track that? Okay, I know that we have evolved now that you're having speaking opportunities, to talk to people, organizations are becoming more aware, right? But is there a way, to track the metrics that, okay, we are actually getting better? People are actually being more sensitive rather than just, apart from the invitation that you're getting, do you have other metrics or ways to track the progress?
Well, so for the organizations themselves, normally HR departments and stuff will have the way they track the metrics based on the initiatives they've put in place. And then
Right,
they will have their own KPIs that they're tracking, but that is organization specific, if you like.
right.
But one of the key metrics that they track is things like retention rates, for example, right?
Okay,
So if you're doing a good job and keeping your people engaged, you're going to have high retention rates because the people are staying,
okay,
right? If
right,
people are leaving and you're watching and people are leaving, and so if you have low retention rates, there is an employee problem. You have toxic environment, because paying people lots of money doesn't cut it anymore.
right,
Um, I mean, I don't know how old you are, but for my generation, it was all about the money. Pay us and we'll stay and we'll die, right? For my kids' generation, it's not about the money. It's all about their mental health. They want to work somewhere that they're valued and they're seen. My son was applying for a job, and he saw it on LinkedIn. It all looked great. And then the next thing he did was go check on Glassdoor to see. And he's like, no, I'm not applying for that. So that's what they do now. And so if you have high retention rates, it means you're retaining your people. It means where you are is a good place to be and people stay, right? If you have a high turnover rates, low retention rates, that KPI is not good.
right,
It means that it's something wrong. And for me, when I work with these organizations, I'm saying to them, even get it manager specific.
right,
Get it manager specific, because some managers, if they can't keep their people, it's an issue and
right.
conversations need to be going on.
I'm in my 40s, so I definitely agree. Because nowadays, even myself, when I'm looking for jobs, I look at work-life balance. What they're saying about the company. Is it somewhere that you can really, really enjoy yourself? The culture is very important now. People are just not looking at
Absolutely.
the amount of money they're getting paid to do their job. The culture and the work-life balance that the organization is providing is very important. Um,
Absolutely.
Now, do you have any success story to share with us, like in those workplace, in IBM or home office, that you actually conducted a workshop and worked with them, and they tell you, okay, from that day that you conducted, this was the retention rate before and after?
No, not specifically like that. But what I have got is because there was an organization I went and spoke, and I thought it was just going to be a one-off thing there.
Right.
Because I went and spoke at for International Women's Day, and they got back to me because here's the thing. Normally, when I go and speak at International Women's Day event, you get there and it's a room full of women, right? In some dark room somewhere, and we kind of talk amongst ourselves, right? And the highlight is that they got an external speaker to come in. That's a highlight.
Right.
Anyway, but this time when I got there, it was different. It was buzzing. It wasn't just women. It was lots of men, and it was standing room only. And I was quite surprised by that. And the event organizer was busy. Even when I got there, it was like, oh, lots of people are working remotely, so I don't know if there'll be a lot of people in the room and all that. Anyway, but I got there and it was very different. Standing room only, lots of men for a women's event, and you think, what is going on?
Right.
Now, what was going on was because the CEO, who's a man, had decided to attend the event. Now, normally I say to people about senior modeling. And by senior modeling, I mean whatever values you want the organization to embrace, you
Right.
need to get senior managers to model that behavior,
Right.
right? Now, what was happening here was the CEO heard that, he decided to attend this women's event, and suddenly all these men who weren't even interested, right, are coming.
Right.
And now they're beginning to understand the issues that, because a lot of the time you can't appreciate something if it is not your world, right? Because we go through life in different lenses. So that was interesting. So that was senior modeling right there. Now, a few months later, this is what happened, because of course there was buzzing and they were talking about it, and on LinkedIn it was all going on. A few months later, they contacted me, and basically the buzz after that talk, and everybody was talking about it, and it wasn't just a women's issue anymore, and they're going to go change whatever initiatives. I mean, I wasn't involved in initiatives they're going to change, but they're going to do all sorts. But they were so impressed that they wanted me to come and speak at another event, this time with their suppliers. So they were organizing an event with their suppliers, and they wanted the suppliers now to be of the same mindset in terms of when it comes to women, the value and what they need to do to make them feel supported and that sort of thing. So for me, that was a success story, that it wasn't just a company now. They wanted to start distributing those behaviors to their stakeholders and their partners. And that was huge.
That is amazing. And I actually like what you said earlier, because even with my organization, right, if you want to get senior management buy-in on a project, you always look at top down rather than just having your direct manager or direct line have to talk to them into the value of the proposition that you have. We're always trying to get upper management or C-suite level involved in the process. That way, the information trickle down from top down. So it makes more sense that way.
Yeah.
So now you are a coach, right? So are you still in the workplace, or you totally disconnected now from the workplace?
Totally disconnected.
All right. So now you coach career moms to break free from from overwhelm. How has that journey been for you so far?
Right. So I do, when I say totally disconnected, as in I'm not employed.
Right. Absolutely. That's
I
what I
just
meant.
do the speaking and the coaching. Right.
Right.
Now, so the coaching came about so when the book came out, and normally I'll go and do a talk. So after the book, I got asked to do a TEDx talk.
Okay.
So when I did the TEDx, and that's when the speaking started, because then people asked me to come and speak, different events, etc. Now, what happened was, normally I'll go somewhere, I give a talk, and then after the talk, people come back of the room and start asking me questions. Now, what I found was I couldn't actually give a good answer to their questions, because normally there'll be a queue of people to speak to me. So I couldn't spend all the time just, going deep with one person, And so I realized that to do that, to be able to actually go deep with somebody and deal with whatever the issue is, I had to coach them. And that's how or why I started the coaching. Because a book is not enough to actually change your life, and unless you're really a very disciplined person. And even then, even when you're disciplined, the discipline is not enough. You will come up against your own limiting beliefs.
Right.
And you can't break through that because, you know, it's what you've thought all your life. And if people around you, normally we would choose people that reflect our beliefs as well. So it's harder to break out of it. So no matter how disciplined you are, even if you get the information and you're disciplined, you will still come across a roadblock, right? And this is where you need somebody to drag you out of that environment, somebody that's been there, done that, and knows that, you know, what you think is the norm is not actually the norm. And that you can do things in a different way, for example, do you know? And when I work with career moms, they, and it's interesting because some women honestly haven't slept since they don't even know when, right? Because their children are not sleeping through the night, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And in their world, because everything is so hard, and you know, if you haven't slept, you're stressed out and whatever, and they feel overwhelmed, they can't even see a world where a child is sleeping through the night and you wake up energized and you can go to work and crush it and come home and have boundaries. And no, that is not their world. You know,
Right.
they just can't see it.
Right.
And they will be surrounded by other moms whose children are not sleeping, and basically everybody's having a whinge fest. So, so this is where a coach comes in to yank you from your comfort zone, from your environment,
Right.
that you've accepted that these are my limits, to say, no, those aren't the limits. Those are limits you've imposed. And come here, we need to step out. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be frightening, but I'm here and I'm going to hold you accountable, and we will come through to the other side. Now, that is what you need a coach to do for you. A book, not quite. A book will not do that so much.
Absolutely. I definitely agree. So now tell me, what advice would you give women, like, without sacrificing their well-being, and find a way to advance their career? What advice would you give them? How would you go about coaching them?
Well, so if you want to advance your career, basically you need to decide. And this, a lot of people are sitting waiting there to be discovered by someone.
Right.
Because they think I'm brilliant. So I'm going to sit here in my corner and work very hard and do everything properly. And, you know, I will be discovered and I'll be promoted and everybody will be happy. It doesn't work like that. Like your boss that you think is going to discover you, half the time they're fighting for their own lives and their own career and waiting for their boss to discover them, whatever. They haven't got time to come and discover you. Right. So if you decide that you want a promotion or you want to go to the next step or whatever it is, you should always know that you are the only person responsible for your career progression. It's not down to your boss. It's not down to your peer. You are the person responsible for your career progression, and you need to map out where you want to go, what the next step should be. Right. So wherever you are now, the next step on the ladder should be clear to you, as in this is the next step. And if it's not available where you are, you need to be looking outside for that. You know, so you need to plan your own career progression. And then when you decide, let's say you're a manager, right? And now you want to be, I don't know, a senior manager. Okay. Let me use examples, because when I used to work in IT, I was an IT program manager. Now, you start off as maybe an analyst, and then you become a project manager, and then you become a program manager, right? So let's say you're a project manager and you want to become a program manager. Normally a program manager, you have several projects under you. You're not sitting there waiting for somebody to say, oh, you really are fab project manager, so come and be a program manager. It doesn't work like that. So if you decide that's the way you want to go, then it's like, what do program managers need to know? What are the skill set? Have you got those skill set? Because if you don't have that, you have to go and start acquiring that, you know? And then when you acquire that and you're ready for the next step, you need to make sure that the people responsible know that you're ready and that you're willing and you're able. So when you're sitting there for your appraisals and everything, you need to let them know you're looking for an opportunity to expand. So your career progression is entirely down to you. It's not down to anybody else. And people kind of stagnate and they sit down because they think, oh, there's nowhere for me to go in this organization. And I'm like, so that's not the only place to work. That's not the only place to work. Because I was coaching this woman who, oh God, she was in England, she was French, wanted to be transferred to Switzerland somewhere so she could commute home to where her parents live or whatever.
Right.
And her company wouldn't do that, even though they had a branch, in Switzerland, they wouldn't do that because whatever. And so she felt stuck. And I'm like, they're not the only company in France or Switzerland or wherever you want to go. There are other organizations. So people kind of box themselves into things and think, oh, there's no opportunity for me here, whatever. And then they say they're frustrated. But you need to cast your net wider. And for her, interestingly, what happened was she went and found another role.
Right.
And because I said, you can't sit here and wait, you need to. And she went and got another role for more money. And then her company then at that point, when they realized she was leaving, then was trying desperately to find a place for her in Switzerland, which is what she'd been asking for 2 years and nobody was paying any attention. Right. So, and this is exactly what I mean. You are responsible. You need to take that bull by the horns and you need to manage and you decide, I'm going to stay in this role for, 18 months, 2 years. And after that, I'm stepping up and this is where I need to. So all the time, you need to know where you're going and be acquiring the skills to get where you want to go and telling people that this is where I want to go and I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I like how you framed that. Now let me ask you. I'm not going back in time, right? Just understand my question. Don't you think that all of the challenges that women are facing, because we are still expecting them when they get home to do mom duty, to do the house duties and all of that stuff. Don't you think it's better that women just, I'm not saying not have a career, but just embrace the traditional role that women usually had and they would not go through all of these challenges? What are your thoughts on that?
You are a very brave man to ask me that question. All right, let's do this. We're going to go there, right? We're going to go there. Let's go there. So, and you're right, they will have an easier life, right? If they just, I don't know, sat at home and did the full-time mom role, right? There will be, they would have an easier life.
Right.
But not every woman will have an easier life because not every woman is an earth mother. For some women, that's enough. And that's all they want to do.
Okay.
Right? Not every woman is built that way. And you didn't go and do the master's degree or whatever it is, right? Just to come and, I don't know, be sitting at home. That said, and I need to caveat this because some women, that's all they want to do. So if that is what you want to do, you need to knock yourself out and do that because that's what you want to do. If that's not what you want to do, but because the politics at work and because the overwhelm and the burnout is too much, so you give up and you come and stay at home, you will be a bad mother. And that's the truth. Because you will be frustrated, you take it out on the kids and all that. So, and this is what I mean by if you are an earth mother and that's your raison d'etre, then yes, you will be a good mother because you're not looking for anything else and you don't feel like you settled and the children are not a sacrifice. Right? But if you were that ambitious career, whatever, and you give up because it's too hard, and you come and sit and then you expect the kids to be grateful because you gave up your PhD. Well, they didn't ask you to do that. So you cannot do that and come and whenever they don't watch their place or whatever, say, did you know what I gave up for you? Well, they didn't ask you.
Right.
And that is just making for a very difficult relationship with your children and people around you. And so for me, I'm like, you need to know the type of woman that you are.
Right.
And if you are not the earth mother, sit at home, bake cakes and do the school fair, if you're not that woman, be true to yourself. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
and know that what you need to do is walk a tight rope. And it is a tight rope. In the workplace, it's not easy. And if you're not careful, you burn out. And that is why you need strategies in place. Right. And for me, and people ask me, you can help all women. Why do you choose just to niche yourself and work with career women? Because they face a particular set of tough challenges. And that's why. So they need me more than others. Right. Because when we're talking boundaries, they need resolute boundaries. When we're talking communication skills, they need ninja communication skills, right? To be able to get what they want across. I mean, they need to be able to delegate like a boss, like their life depends on it. If it's, it should not stay on their plate 5 minutes longer than it needs to be. It should just be delegated off somewhere. And so it's all those skills that you need to be able to manage the workplace, right? And to be able to manage your kids, to be able to manage your partner, because all those stakeholders need to be managed.
Right.
And without the right skills, right? You don't manage the kids, they run roughshod around you, and you will go and do 7 hours before you get to the workplace, do 8 hours and come back and do another 7 hours. That is just crazy, right? And anybody who's doing that has got very porous boundaries, and they need boundaries, and they need to acquire the communication skills to recruit their partner to help them share the enterprise of a family, because that's what it is, right? Two people get together and they decide we're going to have a family, and the next thing the woman is carrying the burden. What the hell, right? It's together, right? It's together. And it is because society expect you to carry the burden. And so the man, they're not bad. They're just doing what society allows them to get away with. And that's how they've been conditioned. And some woman has brought them up to be like that as well. Right. So when I'm talking to this woman, I'm like, make sure you're not bringing up your sons, right, to be the husbands you're fighting with now, because they're not helping you. Right. So when the kids see you, the mom and the dad, share things equitably, and you get the kids involved, they grow up, and there's research to show that kids who had moms work outside the home help out their partners more when they get married, believe it or not, right? And so when they see it, children become what they see. Children become who you are, right? And so if you haven't acquired those skills, and yet they're burning out, you're not doing anybody any favors. And if you decide to give up and come and sit at home, you're just not going to be the best version of yourself. And that's going to affect the way you mother the children. You're not going to be a good mother. You just be a resentful one, shouting at them all the time.
All right. So you actually convinced me on that particular line. You continue to be vocal about empowering women. So in the you've been pretty vocal about empowering a woman in the workplace in general, right? And what's one concrete thing organization can do to make women feel truly valued and supported today?
So rather than one, can I give you a few?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right. Let me give you a few, because there are these workplace traps that women fall into. And organizations can do a far better jobs to make sure that those traps are not, people are educated about those traps, right? So number one is performance bias. Normally, you have a man, you have a woman, and people assume the man will perform better than the woman. That's called performance bias, right? And women have to go in there and earn their keep and prove everything twice. Do you know? Whereas a man has that respect or whatever conferred onto them, like they can do it, right? So you have a man and a woman, I don't know, at a conference, and it was quite funny actually. One of my this woman I used to work for, they went to an IT conference, and she was there with one of her technical architects, and then this guy came to them, to speak to them, and he just kept speaking to the architect, because he couldn't believe that the woman was a VP. He thought that she was a secretary. But that is performance bias right there.
Right.
And so it's educating people on, stop that nonsense with the performance bias, and don't just assume the man can do it. But when it's a woman, she has to prove her point. And then what you have is There's also affinity bias. There's likability bias. That likability bias is women are expected to be nurturing, right? And so when a man is aggressive or speaks to somebody in an aggressive way, it's accepted. Nobody really bats an eyelid. They think, oh yeah, he's a good leader. He'll take no nonsense. When a woman is not even aggressive, when the woman is assertive, people don't like that. They just do not like a strong woman. And so, and when I say people, I mean both men and women do not like an assertive woman. So it's not just the men.
Right.
Because society is conditioned that the woman has got to be nurturing and softly spoken and whatever. So she's coming in there and she knows her rights and she's trying to be as assertive, not even aggressive,
Right.
assertive. It doesn't sit well, right? And so that's a likability bias. It means she's not liked. She wouldn't dare behave the same way as a man. She would never get away with it. But even if she went a little bit close to be assertive, nah, people don't like that. And so it's that tightrope that women have to walk all the time, you know?
Right.
So you'll be kind of liked and somehow still be strong. It's exhausting. So we need to stop that, you know, that likability bias thing. And then, of course, there's a maternal bias. So the moment you get pregnant, people assume you've got maternity brain, you can't think. And when you come back, they think, okay, now she's got leaky boobs and she definitely can't think, right? So, right? And so it's just like you're kept off major projects and what, rather than them supporting you. Yes, you might have leaky boobs, but you need support. That's all, right? To be able to achieve what it is you need to achieve. So, it is these biases, these traps that women fall into. And people are unforgiving of women when they make mistakes. And what you have is attribution bias is another one where women don't get credited for their achievements, whereas men, you know. So it's all these things in the workplace. It's just educating people about these traps that women fall into and the biases so they can manage them better and have trained people on that. I mean, I've done this training in so many workplaces. In terms of if you see one of these biases at play, if you see one of these traps, you know, there used to be a cartoon where this woman says something and then one of the male colleagues or the manager says, well, can you get one of your male colleagues to say exactly what you said so we can hear? Right? Or a woman says something and it's like nobody's heard, but a man says the same thing and everybody's busy nodding and you're like, but she just said that a minute ago, right? So again, it's just to stop all that nonsense. And that will help women a lot. And also, because it's a societal issue, it's not just men treating women like that. Women treat women like that too, because it's a societal issue. So when I was talking about the woman being assertive, you know, it just doesn't sit well with anybody. It doesn't sit well with the women, doesn't sit well with the men. And so it's just making sure we understand that, we understand all these biases and we have a way of challenging them and recruiting allies, you know, and men, because of the performance bias, right? When a man is talking about something, people will listen because of performance bias. So if we get them as allies to talk about these women issues, it lands better because of performance bias.
I think women are very, very bright. And to be honest, right, my last two bosses, they both were women. And I never felt like, they were assertive or they were quote unquote aggressive or they were just behaving any differently than the bosses that I used to have. And I really like them. And I think we have evolved. And I don't know if you have noticed, but there have been a lot of push in HR, right, to change the dynamic in workplace. So, and I've seen it like in my workplace, at least I've seen that they don't have too many biases, right? I mean, some of the biases you cannot obviously just erase it. Is part of how we were baked as a society. But I think there has been a lot of evolution in that space.
There
So
has, but if you forgive me, you are a man. So you're not walking in a woman's shoes. So
Well, yeah.
all those biases I'm talking about, they will get conferred onto you, right? And so the women's experience will be different. So if a
I agree.
woman said to me exactly what you said, then I would say, okay, good. If a man is saying it, he's got all these biases in his favor, right? So the workplace really was not set up for us. And because really it was the men that used to go in there to start with. So, and then when we came in with a kitchen sink strapped to our backs. So it didn't help. And the way of operating didn't change. So yes, a lot has changed, right? A lot has changed, but a lot has changed from, I'm thinking, no, that post hasn't come out yet because I'm actually got a post coming out where I've said, the timeline of the changes in the workplace, right? But although a lot has changed, it's only changed in that now it's not acceptable to grope a woman in the office, right? So that's changed, but all the other biases, the subtle biases, they're still there. They're still there. They haven't gone anywhere. Where you will go to a conference and people will still assume that the woman is the secretary and the man is the VP. Yeah, that will still be the assumption.
No, I think I will let you. I will accept that one for the simple reason that it's hard for me thinking in woman's shoes because I'm not a woman, obviously, right? So I don't know what's going through their mind. I've just thought that, based on all of the training that I've seen lately on HR coming across, and the bosses that I had in the past couple of years, that honestly they had been an evolution. But in your lenses, it's best that a woman actually speaks on that, particular space to actually, for it to make more sense. So I will agree in that particular point. So
Thank you.
so let's switch a little bit about, like, you know diversity, culture, and philosophy. You work your work blends like Western science, Eastern philosophy, and African wisdom, right? Can you share a practical example of how that approach has helped leaders you work with lately?
Yeah, so, and that is general across, that's not just women, but that is just general. So when I talk about Western science, basically this is where we're talking about the research and the figures and all that. And so there's stuff that, Eastern mystics have been saying forever. Nobody was listening because they thought these people are mad, right? These people are crazy. What are they talking about? And now science is proving all those things now. Do you know? And
Right.
so there are a lot of things that we used to dismiss before, like even things like meditation used to be woo woo, but now it's taught in corporate, right? And people are what is it called? Mindfulness this and mindfulness that, and everybody's doing breath work now. Right? Previously, I don't know, 25 years ago, you go and breath work in the corporate, the men in white coat will come and cart you out of the place, and before you know it, you will be hospitalized. So it's changed a lot.
Okay.
And so when I'm talking about, even let's use meditation as an example. And then now people talk about emotional regulation and how to manage yourself, right? Now you would manage yourself and your emotions if you can control your breath, for example, right? Because if you're in an agitated state, you're breathing in a certain way. If you're in a calm state, you're breathing in a certain way, right? Now, the Eastern mystics, the philosophers, the yogi gurus, they've told us this for millennia. Who was listening, right? Nobody was listening because it was seen as woo woo. But Western science now, they've done lots of research on this now, and they could even tell you all the scientific terms in terms of the number of whatever for the heart rate for the particular emotional state. So now it makes sense, right? To go and sit there and do that breath work. Whereas previously nobody was doing it. But now people will, try and regulate their emotions and do the box breath or whatever, the 4-4, whatever it is they call it, right? So that is an example of Eastern philosophy being met with science. And now, I love neuroscience, right? And now in neuroscience, we're actually understanding more and more. So all these things that people used to think they're crazy are no longer crazy. And the more we have technology, because in terms of Eastern philosophy, what they were telling us, because we didn't have the tools to measure it, that's what made it crazy. But now we're getting the tools and we can measure it, so it's no longer crazy. Now, on the African side, and again, if you talk about, for me, the African bit is all about community. And we now know the loneliness, right, can kill you quicker than smoking.
That's true.
There are campaigns about don't smoke and whatever, you know, all the carcinogens you get into your body and all that for smoking. But we now know loneliness is just as bad.
Right.
Right? Now, if you're in a village in Africa, no matter how poor you are, you're never lonely. Right? The people turn up in your house you don't even know.
Right.
Right? Everybody's looking after a niece or a nephew whose parents have died or whatever. They just get acquired and you don't even know half your relatives, but they're there. Right? You have a party and the people that turn up, you don't know half of them.
Right.
Do you know? But you're told, oh yeah, that's your uncle's wife, whatever. You just get on with it. That's community. Right? And so that loneliness that's killing people is not there. Right? And so that is again another practical example. And so because we're social beings, right? And when you're doing social things and you're connecting with people, you know, the hormone, is it hormone or neurotransmitter? I forget which one it is, but oxytocin is released now.
Right.
Do you know? And this is what it's what is released when like a woman is breastfeeding and all that. So that connection, that sense of connection when you hug people and all that. Now we know that's what's happening. So again, that's a science underpinning traditional ways of behaving. Yeah. And once we start understanding these things, we behave in a different way. Our values change, right? And you have, I did a LinkedIn post about all these African proverbs and what they mean. And when you go and see the proverbs and what they're saying, again, it's trying to orchestrate our behavior. And that behavior releases certain neurochemicals into our body that makes us feel good. Do you know? That is the Western science right there. So we're beginning to understand all these things, right? And for me, if you look at Eastern philosophy, where they think we're all of the one mind, if you go to Africa, there's something similar because they all think that we're all one, you know? And now science is beginning to come up with proof of the way that we're all tapping into some way, some intelligence, some whatever, you know, the consciousness debate is still out there. But now for me, we live in very exciting times because we're beginning to know more. Science is finding out more. And what it's doing is bringing spirituality out of the woo-woo into the normal way of being. Is bringing community out of, I don't know, some dense African forest into this is the way we need to behave and that you are literally your brother's keeper. And when you do that, when you're good to another human being, it is actually good for you, yourself. You're not doing anybody a favor by being good to another human being. It is you're doing it for yourself. So for me, that is what bringing the East, West, and the African together is.
That's a very, very interesting comment that you made, and I think I'm very, very actually curious to see how that's going to unfold. The reason why I'm saying that, right? We become more private, right? We've kind of separated ourselves from the community. Now, although we feel like we have a virtual community via social media, that relationship is not the same as just coming and having that face-to-face connection, right? And social media is gaining more ground. You know, what is your take on that? How will we reconcile with our true self?
So And social media has to do its thing. It's like everything. It does its thing and then you get to the swing back because something always goes too far and then it swings back. Right. Just like how now AI is proliferating, I believe that's the word, and now people are craving for things that are more human. So now to be human is fashionable now because they don't want something that is perfectly produced by AI, right? So now they want to see the typos because that shows a human has typed it rather than something being perfect. So, and it's the same with social media because you can have 2,000 friends on Facebook. That ain't friendship. Do you know? A friend is somebody who's been in the trenches with you that you can phone at 2 a.m. And I mean, when I was in labor with my first child, my best friend, she lived in San Francisco then, and I phoned her and she was doing my breathing with me, right? In the middle of the night. That is friendship. Now, it's some connection on Facebook or some connection on LinkedIn, right? I met you on LinkedIn. I can't phone you and say I'm in labor. Do you know what I mean? And so breathe with me. It doesn't work like that.
Right.
So, when it comes to relationships, it's taking the time, and relationships take effort, but taking the time to water those relationships, it bears fruit, right? And every time you're watering that, you're releasing oxytocin in yourself. Now we know that. Do all the social media you want. That ain't real.
Right.
At some point, you need to come back to real.
Right.
Do you know? And people will have to realize that in the end. And also, when you're looking at social media, it's curated. They haven't seen you crying with a snot and everything, right? You put on the makeup, you take the picture. You're showing them what you want them to see.
That's true.
So that ain't real. So if you want the real is, you know, in the moment, what is happening? Okay, count my contractions for me, 5 minutes apart. Okay.
That is truly real.
Do you know that it doesn't get realer than that?
Right.
Do you know? And it's interesting actually because she got me to come and speak at her organization. And when I was telling them we were counting the contractions apart, nobody believed us, but that was the truth. But you need to build these friendships. You need to nurture them. And like for the women, when the children come along, I'm telling them it takes a village. In Africa, the village will be there. Here, you have to build your village.
Right.
So although it takes a village, you have to go out there and build your village. And it could be a neighbor, it could be a teacher, it could be whatever, but you have to build that village for that support. And so do social media all you want, but that ain't real. So if you want real, you need to, and that doesn't mean you can't meet somebody on social media and build a real friendship, right? So you can build and get intentional about it. I've got friends that I've never met in real life, but they're my friends, right? And again, it's because we took that relationship off and built it. So this now we live in a virtual world, as it were. But the fact that, you know, it's a virtual platform doesn't mean you can't have real relationships on there, but you counting your Facebook friends of friends, no.
I agree 100%. Now, all your clients, they are based in England, or have you worked with clients in the US as well?
Yes, I've worked with clients in the US, yeah, and the UK, but most of them are UK, some in Europe. Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, how was your message received in US, in Europe versus US? Has it been the same impact? What you've been doing? Just
Yeah,
out
I
of
think
curiosity.
so. I think so. I think it's been the same impact. Okay, so sometimes people in the US don't understand some of the slang I use,
Okay.
right? And then I have to back up and explain what I mean. So there's a language thing there sometimes, you
Okay.
know. But in the US, they tend to be perhaps a little bit more open to certain things actually than here.
Okay.
So and then it does also depend on the individuals. and stuff like that. But no, I think it's more or less maybe a language thing there. Because again, I've spoken in organizations in the US as well, where I've had to, speak in a way, not have those, aphorisms that might not translate,
Okay.
because I think I'm speaking, I think I'm saying what I'm saying, but certain words here, we say them differently.
Right.
Like, I don't know, we say duvet, you guys say something else. I don't know what you say, comforter, I think
Right.
is what you do, but we say duvet.
Yeah.
So what I'm talking about is, so like maybe if I'm depressed, I'll be saying, okay, I'm hiding under the duvet, and somebody will not understand what I mean by that expression, so it's those sort of things, just making sure that, they understand what I'm saying and things translate. Yeah.
Absolutely. So you've been voted one of top 101 global influencer by Inspiring Workplace 3 times. So what does that recognition mean to you personally?
It's interesting actually, because that particular whatever award means a lot, because you don't even know. Because a lot of awards, you have to put up for it and campaign and get all your family and everybody to vote, and then you win, right?
Hey.
This is not like that. You don't
Right.
even know. So the first time I won it, I didn't even know they existed.
Okay.
Do you know? I had no idea. I was just there doing my thing. And
So who's the body responsible for it?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I had no idea.
Okay.
So until I had made the list, and then they contacted me. Do you
No, what
know?
I was asking is how do you who's what is that organization that is actually responsible for picking the people, and how do you get discovered?
I don't know how you
Oh,
get this.
you still don't know how you
I
get
don't know
discovered.
how you get discovered, but I know the organization now, because,
Okay.
I've been on their list 3 times. But before, I still don't know their criteria. I don't know
Okay. Okay.
how they do it.
Okay.
So you can't influence it in any way, because sometimes they would say you've been nominated for this award, and then now you have to go and get people to vote to see whether you win, right?
Right.
This
Right.
one doesn't work like that. They just do it. So Inspiring Workplaces, it is an organization, and basically, and they just don't do the influencers. They do workplaces as well. And so they
Okay.
have people who are the influencers, and then they also vote for workplaces that are good to work. And then they do big SMEs and corporates. They do different categories as well. But for their criteria, actually, it was so I say that. So the people that are voting, no, not the people the people that are deciding, they know what they're looking for,
Okay.
and they have their criteria. So, because I remember one year, I was actually one of the people choosing the organizations that were going to make it, but these organizations didn't know, right? And so I was given, like, these are the organizations, based on this criteria, whatever, right? But it was agnostic to them.
Okay.
They didn't even know I was doing that.
Okay.
Right? And I suspect it's the same for the influencers. So for us, whoever's doing it, I don't know what they're looking at. And I
Oh,
don't know how. I don't know what criteria. So I can't influence it in any way whatsoever.
well, congratulations again.
Thank you. Thank
That's
you.
the achievement. So now looking ahead, we almost already crossed the hour. So looking ahead now, what's the next big chapter for Gifty, right?
So for me, I feel I was put on this earth to help women stand in their power, right? And not just moms, just all women stand in their power, right?
Right.
When it comes to coaching, I can only do so much, and then that's why I niche myself to the career mode. But in terms of what is next for me, in the immediate future, it's more of the same. Getting on
Okay.
bigger stages
Okay.
and getting my message out there. And to be able to get to the women that need me. So somebody needs to get into their heads and stop them from settling, stop them from giving up on the workplace.
Right.
Um, And if you're going to come and sit at home and look after your children, it should be not because the workplace is not working for you. It should be because you feel that was what you were put on this earth for. So the Kennedys, their mom, what's her name? Anyway, no, Jackie Kennedy was the wife. Whatever her name is, the Kennedys, the U.S. presidents, the Kennedys, their mom
Right.
said her job was to bring up presidents. That was her job.
Nice. That's
Now,
interesting.
there you go. And that was her ambition. That was her noble ambition, and good for her. So somebody like that, what does she want to go do in the workplace? You're bringing up future presidents. There's a lot of training involved there, right? And that was exactly, so everybody is bringing up the next future somebody, right? Now, if you think that that is it and that's what you're put on this earth for, knock yourself out. For the rest of us, that maybe that wasn't what we were put on this earth for, and that there is a hunger
Right.
for something else, I want to be able to empower them and for them not to burn out. So for me, what's next for me is get to those women, let them know that there is another way and they don't have to burn out.
I like that. A life of purpose. So now, if you would, let's just now get out of these tough questions and just get to know you a little bit outside of what you do. One book you recommend for everyone that should, outside of your book, right? One book that you recommend everyone should read right now.
So that book I recommend everyone should read is that book behind me. I'm not sure if you can see it on my bookshelf. It's called Autobiography of a Yogi. I would recommend every soul on this earth to read that book.
All right. I'll definitely put that on the list of books that I should be reading. Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. Everyone should read that book.
Okay. All right. So one advice would you give to your younger self before we actually close this meeting?
That's a tough one. But to be kinder to myself. Yeah. To be kinder to myself, because I was relentless. I was going to take on the world. I was just relentless. I was so driven. And I was very tough on myself, and so, yeah, it would be to be kinder to myself.
That's a small statement packed with a lot of meaning. So I don't know if you have you read that book from Thomas Friedman who talks about the world is flat.
No,
Okay, he talks about resilience and adaptability of immigrants. So I wonder if you read that. So
it's called what? The Wall is Flat.
yes,
Okay.
a very very interesting book. There's a lot of statement within the book that talks about how immigrant came from scarcity, most of them, and how that drives them to become resilient and just be able to adapt in any situation.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is it, because honestly, because, if you're an immigrant, there's that scarcity mindset and that
Right.
makes you driven. But, the scarcity mindset is just, you can achieve the same things in a different way. You can achieve the same things in a more holistic way and in a more sustainable way without burning yourself out, and being kind to yourself in the process. You can actually achieve more.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Gifty, for sharing your journey, your wisdom. Of course, we had many more questions, but we like to keep our interview to 1 hour. But thank you again. Your wisdom. You definitely, how would I say, infectious with passion, right? So
Thank you.
you've shown us today productivity isn't just about doing more; it's about doing better with purpose, balance, and well-being. You know, and to our listeners today, if you learn more about Gifty's work, grab a copy of her book, The Octopus on a Treadmill. Just watch her TED Talk and you just follow her. I'm following her on LinkedIn. Every single post that she does, I say, "Oh, this is interesting. I want to get to know the person behind this kind word and interesting words." And you did challenge me to think differently about this interview. So thank you again. And one last word, and we'll let you get back to your normal.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for inviting me on here. And also, thank you for being open to being challenged, right? Because we need men like you who are
Right.
open-minded.
Absolutely.
Because remember what I said about the performance bias, when it's coming from the mouth of a man, is heard better.
Right.
It lands better. And so we need more allies like you to help us. So thank you for giving me the platform
Right.
to be able to put my message across. And one last word for me, and obviously, you know, it's in my book, but I am the descendant of Yasantua, who was one of the warrior queens in the Ashanti region in Ghana. And she led her men to war. So that feistiness, that fighting spirit has always been in me, has always been in me. And, you know, fighting for women's empowerment, this is like, I grew up around that. And my tribe in Africa is a matrilineal tribe. So, you know, the property passes down through the woman's line.
Right.
So I come from a line of very strong women, do you
Right.
know? And I feel every woman should be able to stand in her power no matter what. So there you go.
All right, go grab the book for more. And Ghana actually is a great empire because it used to be spread all the way to the farthest west of West Africa. Just I think some parts of Senegal used to belong to the empire of Ghana, if I'm not mistaken. So Ghana is a true empire. So thank you again, Gifty, for the opportunity. Thank you for sharing your story. And this is the Opportunity Room. I'm your host, Amadou. And until next time, keep learning, keep striving, share, and subscribe for more. Thank you.